You're too old to have kids anyway. Amanda sneered across the dinner table, her perfectly manicured hand resting on her barely visible baby bump. Don't worry, Mom. I'll give you the grandchildren you deserve. Someone in this family has to continue the Morgan legacy. I gripped my fork tighter, watching my mother-in-law beam at her precious daughter. My name is Catherine Morgan. I'm 38, and for the past 5 years, I've endured endless jabs about my age and childless status from my sister-in-law. Catherine's focused on her career. My mother-in-law Margaret chimed in, her voice dripping with disappointment. Some women just aren't meant to be mothers. I caught my husband David's eye silently pleading for support, but he just shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding confrontation as usual. At 40, he'd always let his younger sister's behavior slide, claiming that's just how Amanda was. Actually, I started, but Amanda cut me off. Oh please, you're practically 40. Your eggs are probably dried up by now. She laughed, looking around the table for approval. Besides, you can barely take care of yourself, let alone a baby. What Amanda didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had been undergoing fertility treatments for the past year. Every morning injection, every doctor's appointment, every hopeful moment and crushing disappointment. I kept it all to myself, knowing they'd only use it as ammunition. Amanda, honey, her husband Tom warned quietly, but she was on a roll. I mean, really, what kind of mother would you even be? You work crazy hours, you're not exactly maternal, and let's face it, you'd be collecting Social Security by the time the kid graduated high school. The table fell silent, waiting for my usual quiet acceptance of Amanda's cruelty. But something in me snapped. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick envelope. You know what, Amanda? You're right. I am older. I do work hard. And unlike you, I don't take anything for granted. I slid the envelope across the table. Open it. What's this supposed to be? She scoffed, but I could see curiosity getting the better of her. Go ahead, I encouraged, my heart pounding but my voice steady. Since you're so concerned about my reproductive status, you might find it interesting. Amanda rolled her eyes but opened the envelope, pulling out a stack of medical records, lab results, and most importantly, an ultrasound image dated just 2 days ago. Her face paled as she realized what she was looking at. This can't be. Twins, I said simply, 14 weeks along. Turns out my eggs aren't quite as dried up as you thought. Margaret snatched the papers from Amanda's trembling hands, her eyes widening as she scanned the documents. But how? Why didn't you tell us? Because I said, finally letting years of hurt seep into my voice every time I've tried to share anything important in my life. Amanda turns it into a competition or an opportunity to belittle me. I wanted to experience this joy without her toxicity. David finally found his voice. Honey, why didn't you tell me? I turned to him, tears threatening to fall. I wanted to be sure. I've had 2 miscarriages in the past 3 years, but you were so busy defending Amanda's jokes about my age and childlessness that I couldn't bear to share my pain with you. The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda's face had lost its usual smug expression, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. Margaret clutched the ultrasound photo, tears streaming down her face as she realized how their assumptions and cruel comments had pushed me away during what should have been a shared family joy. 2 miscarriages. David whispered, his face ashen. You went through that alone. I nodded, wiping away a stray tear. I did. And now I'm 14 weeks pregnant with twins, and I've never felt stronger or more ready to be a mother. The family dinner that had started with Amanda's usual mockery had transformed into something else entirely. For the first time, they were seeing me, really seeing me, and the strength it had taken to endure their judgment while fighting my own private battles. But this was just the beginning. What they didn't know was that I had more revelations to share, ones that would shake their perfect family dynamic to its core. The week following my pregnancy announcement was chaos. Suddenly, I was the center of attention. But not in the way Amanda had always commanded it. Margaret called daily, oscillating between tearful apologies and excited questions about the twins. David walked on eggshells, guilt evident in every tentative gesture. But Amanda's reaction surprised me most. She stopped posting her usual daily pregnancy updates on social media. Her smug maternity photo shoot was quietly canceled. For once, she wasn't the star of the show, and she didn't know how to handle it. Then came the family brunch that changed everything. I've been doing research. Amanda announced, strutting into Margaret's dining room. Twin pregnancies at your age are extremely high risk. You'll probably need to quit your job. I sipped my day of tea calmly. My doctor says I'm perfectly healthy. In fact, I paused, savoring the moment. She says I'm in better shape than most 30-year-old mothers she sees. Well, I've been reading online forums, Amanda persisted, and you really should consider reducing to a single baby. It's safer. The room fell silent. David's fork clattered against his plate. What did you just say? I asked, my voice deadly quiet. I'm just thinking about what's best for the family, Amanda said, her fake concern transparent. Mom agrees with me, don't you? Margaret shifted uncomfortably. Well, I did read some concerning statistics. That's when I pulled out my second envelope of the week. Funny you should mention statistics, I said, removing several documents. While we're sharing medical opinions, let's talk about genetic testing. Amanda's face went white. What? You see, when I started my fertility journey, I underwent comprehensive genetic screening. It's standard procedure at my age. I spread the papers on the table. But what's interesting is what they found in our family's medical history. David leaned forward. What do you mean? There's a genetic condition that runs in the Morgan family. It typically affects women, causing high-risk pregnancies after age 35. I looked directly at Amanda. Which is why it's strange that you never mentioned your own genetic testing results. Amanda's hand flew to her stomach protectively. I don't know what you're talking about. The condition requires monthly monitoring, special dietary restrictions, and careful medical supervision. I continued, watching her squirm. All things you've been surprisingly casual about, given your condition. Stop it, Amanda whispered. Unless, I said softly, there's nothing to monitor. The room erupted in confusion. Margaret grabbed the medical documents, her eyes scanning frantically. David stood up, staring at his sister. Amanda, he said slowly, what's going on? Tears started rolling down Amanda's face. I just wanted the attention. I finished for her. The praise, the way everyone doted on you while mocking my childlessness. Except you're not pregnant, are you, Amanda? She broke down completely, mascara streaming down her face. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I just wanted Mom to look at me the way she used to. Margaret collapsed into a chair, the genetic records floating to the floor. You've been lying. All this time. I was going to fake a miscarriage next month, Amanda sobbed. Before it became too obvious, I didn't know Catherine was actually pregnant. I felt no joy in her breakdown, only a deep sadness for the family dynamics that had led us here. Years of favoritism, of allowing Amanda's toxic behavior, had created this mess. I've known for weeks, I said quietly. The genetic testing showed no markers in your blood work because there was no pregnancy to test. I was waiting to see how far you'd take it. David ran his hands through his hair, looking torn between anger and disbelief. Why didn't you expose her sooner? I placed my hand over my growing bump, feeling a flutter of movement. Because I needed everyone to see the truth about who Amanda really is. Not just about this lie, but about all of them. About who she becomes when she's not the center of attention. For the first time in our entire relationship, Amanda looked at me with something other than contempt. It might have been respect, or perhaps just the recognition that I wasn't the pushover she'd always assumed I was. But this revelation wasn't just about exposing Amanda's lie. It was about breaking the cycle of toxicity that had poisoned our family for years. And as I sat there, watching their world reshape itself around this new reality, I knew there was still more they needed to understand. The aftermath of Amanda's fake pregnancy revelation sent shockwaves through the family. Margaret retreated into herself, barely speaking to anyone. David oscillated between anger at his sister and guilt over his years of enabling her behavior. But it was Amanda's next move that truly surprised everyone. 3 days after the brunch confrontation, she showed up at my door. No makeup, no designer clothes, just Amanda, stripped of her usual armor. Can we talk? She asked, her voice small. I let her in, watching as she perched uncertainly on my couch, looking around at the half-finished nursery preparations visible through the open door. I've been seeing a therapist, she blurted out, since yesterday. I needed to understand why I did what I did. I sat across from her, one hand resting protectively on my bump. And she helped me see something I've been running from. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. I've been horrible to you because you represent everything I'm not. Successful, independent, strong. You didn't need anyone's validation to build your life. I stayed quiet, letting her continue. When you married David, I was terrified. You were this accomplished woman who didn't play by our family's rules. You didn't compete for attention or try to please mom. You just were yourself. That's why you tried so hard to tear me down, I said softly. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Every time I made a joke about your age or your childlessness, I was really just trying to make myself feel better. But then you announced your pregnancy, and suddenly all my lies felt so pathetic. They were, I agreed, but without malice. And they hurt more people than just me. Amanda looked down at her hands. Mom won't talk to me. David can barely look at me. I've destroyed everything. No, I said, surprising myself with my gentleness. You've just forced everyone to face the truth, including yourself. I stood up and walked to my home office, returning with one final envelope. Amanda eyed it warily. More revelations. Actually, it's an opportunity. I handed her the envelope. Open it. Inside was a brochure for a renowned family therapy center, along with an appointment card for next week. I've booked sessions for all of us, I explained. You, me, David, your parents. We all need to heal from this pattern of behavior that's poisoned our relationships for years. Amanda stared at the brochure, fresh tears falling. Why would you do this for me? After everything I've done. Because these babies deserve to be born into a healthy family, I said, touching my bump. And because despite everything, you're still their aunt. For the first time in our entire relationship, Amanda hugged me, genuinely, without any hidden agenda or competition. The following months brought changes none of us could have predicted. Through therapy, Margaret finally confronted her role in creating Amanda's dependent personality and competitive nature. David learned to stand up for what was right, not just what was easy. And Amanda, she began the hard work of building an identity that didn't depend on being the center of attention. As my pregnancy progressed, I watched our family dynamic shift and heal. Amanda started volunteering at a women's shelter, finding purpose in helping others instead of tearing them down. Margaret joined a grandparent support group, learning to love her children without controlling them. David became the partner I'd always needed, strong and supportive. The day the twins were born, everyone was there, not competing for attention or pushing their own agenda, but truly present for the moment. Amanda was the one who noticed first when I went into labor, calmly calling the doctor while Margaret helped pack my hospital bag. David held my hand through every contraction, no longer looking to others for cues on how to behave. Now, as I watch my daughter Sophie and son James sleeping peacefully in their cribs, I marvel at how life's greatest challenges can lead to its greatest transformations. Amanda sits beside me, quietly folding tiny onesies, occasionally glancing at her niece and nephew with genuine love. Thank you, she whispers, for not giving up on our family. I smile, remembering the long journey that brought us here. Sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most beautiful victories. The sound of David and Margaret's laughter drifts up from downstairs, where they're preparing dinner together, a new weekly tradition. Our family isn't perfect, but it's real now. The facades have crumbled, the competitions have ceased, and in their place, something authentic has grown. As I look around at this new reality we've built, I realize that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better, together.